My name is Kurt Anderson. I am currently a junior and I'm running for president.
My name is Taylor James. I'm currently a sophomore and I'm running for vice president.
My name is Vanessa Agbar. I'm currently a junior and I'm running for Attorney General.
I'm Rebecca Ellison and I'm currently a junior and I'm running for treasurer.
I'm Jamal Washington. I'm currently a junior and I'm running for chief of staff.
Okay. Could you state your involvement either now or in the past with SGA, if applicable?
Okay, so I have been the Director of University Communications for the SGA for the past 2 years, and my freshman year I was a SGA Senator.
So I'm currently a SGA Senator. This is my first year. I am on the Appropriations Committee and I also served as the chair of the Constituency Outreach Committee.
This would be my first year on SGA if elected, but I'm in a student group that is sponsored by SGA.
I've been a senator for the past 2 years. I was sat on the Appropriations Committee for the past 2 years, and I also chaired the Safety and Security Committee this year.
And I served as an SGA senator last year. I sat on the Appropriations Committee.
Great. Again, down the line, outside of the SGA, could you just tell me what involvement you have on campus and in the greater Towson community?
So I'm a resident assistant in Newell Hall, and actually that's all I'm doing this year. So yeah.
I am a sport management major, so I do a lot of volunteering with different sports teams. I also volunteer at the Hussman Center, which is in the Wellness Centers for Adults with Autism. I'm a general member of my building council, and I also used to be in the African Diaspora Club.
I'm president of the African Diaspora Club. I'm also a SAGE mentor, and that stands for Students Achieving Goals Through Education. And I'm also, I work in Campus Rec as fitness for staff.
I'm in Kappa Delta Sorority, and I work as a wellness peer educator at the Counseling Center.
I am currently a presidential ambassador here at Towson. I'm also a brother of Alpha Kappa Psi. I am a SAGE mentor, and I am the community outreach coordinator for the Latin American Student Organization at Towson. So we do a lot of community service for the outer community.
Again, down the line, what do you think qualifies you to hold the job you are running for?
For me, I've been in the SGA for 3 years, and I'm ready to bring some change to the organization. And there's a lot of things that that I think that uniquely at Towson makes our SGA strong. And then there's a lot of things that I want to see changed. So I think for me, it's been 3 years. I've served in almost every branch now, the judicial board, but I've been an integral part in a lot of what goes on in the SGA.
So for me, this year as a senator, I did a lot of hard work. I passed resolutions, Senate bills, and finance bills. I think my passion also is a big, huge thing that qualifies me. I have a huge passion for my peers and just for the general Towson community. I've spent time in Annapolis testifying for intern protection, and just those experiences I think are what ultimately give you the leadership qualities that you need to serve on the executive board, because then you can mentor other people in the organization and just build a more cohesive group.
I'm a leader on campus, so I've been able to have a lot of experiences working with other people and working in organizations and seeing in my own group what needs to be changed and what can be done, and being able to apply that to SGA is something that I feel that I can do. And more specifically, last semester, my group, the African Diaspora Club, we have a annual showcase, and because of the experiences that I had through that, I was able to see firsthand some of the inefficiencies in SGA in terms of the financial aspect and just working as a student group with SGA, the communication that needs to be there. I've just worked on this side, and I would like to be the change on the other side for other student groups.
And really quick, what's the membership of ADC?
You mean in terms of how many people are in it? It's grown significantly. I would say that there are at least every single meeting, there's at least about 70+ people that come.
Okay, I feel like I'm qualified to be the treasurer because I've been a senator for the past 2 years. As I said before, I sat on the Appropriations Committee for the past 2 years. So I have a lot of knowledge on the financial process and the budgeting process, and being a senator for the past 2 years, I understand how important it is for senators to communicate with their student groups and to communicate with the treasurers in order for them to be successful in the budgeting process. And that's something that I feel very passionate about bringing into our platform for the next year.
And I'm qualified to be Chief of Staff because I've held multiple leadership positions on Towson University's campus, and I've been in different positions and roles that have forced me to oversee and work with different constituents at this university. This coupled with my past experience with SGA, it definitely qualifies me for the position.
And then kind of piggybacking off that, why are you running? Why do you want the position that you are pursuing?
So for me, I looked at, I'm coming up to my senior year, and, like I talked about earlier, I think there's a lot of things that the SGA does really well. And what came down to me was really Vanessa's experience this year. Vanessa and I have been friends since freshman year, and to see what she went through and to see that wasn't just one group, really kind of opened my eyes to some of the change that needed to happen in the SGA. And I think a lot of that is, I think there's some people in the SGA that are in positions for themselves and are taking things and serving themselves more so than they're serving serving students in the student body. And I don't think that that's everyone, and I don't think that it's a rampant problem or this big issue. But I definitely want to see a culture shift in the SGA. I think that now, at least for me, from what I feel like the environment is, it's up to the student or the student group to come to the SGA. And, I want every student or every student organization to know that they have a partner. And I think that that's what the SGA is here for. It's not here as a resume building opportunity. It's here to make a difference in students' lives at Towson. And that's the biggest thing the reason why I'm running is, I want to see that change.
Really quick, could you two maybe elaborate on what you went through? Because you're talking about the ADC funding.
Mm-hmm.
Could you just elaborate on that a little bit? What happened?
Vanessa, I'll let you talk.
Okay, so like I said, every year ADC has a cultural showcase to basically broadcast African culture here on campus through fashion, through food, through music, through dance, through like any form of media that you can think of. And in 2014 of December, that was our 11th annual explosion. And so we wanted it to be, bigger and better, of course. But we did not have the funding at that time, to do everything that we wanted to do. So because we were package 3, we qualified for extra funding. I really wanted to make sure that the people who are in ADC could see I don't know, it was really important for me to see how it was handled. I'm just the type of person who would rather see how it was handled in SGA for myself rather than hear, oh, they just they voted off on it. I just have to visually see what happened. So we went into the meeting that day, and it was basically, it's one thing to strike the funding, but it's another thing to strike it with negativity and to strike it without the sense of even wanting to work with the student group on it. And of course there are some things that might have gone against the financial policy, for example, the beads that we needed to show our culture. Maybe that went against the financial policy, but at the same time, there was no sense of anyone who wanted to work with us. There was no sense of people who had our backs except for Kurt and Taylor and a few other people who are actually part of the Roar movement at this moment, who had our backs, and they came to us and they told us, that's not how the SGA is supposed to work. The SGA is supposed to be for you, regardless of if they're saying no to what you're saying. They're supposed to work with you, because at the end of the day, we are all one Towson. We're not. It's not. At that moment, I can honestly say it felt like we were opposite teams.
Mm-hmm.
Or something.
And I think for me, I started out my SGA experience as a freshman senator, and the mentality then was we're working with the group. The Senate has Senate discretion, so basically what that means is that there's not something that aligns with the funding policy, they can make an exception to that rule if it isn't in line with the vision of the organization. So for ADC, those cultural beats, we don't fund any consumable items, so essentially t-shirts as giveaways, so t-shirts like this, but if ADC is doing a cultural explosion, obviously that cultural sort of, I don't want to say products, but consumable items like beads or, the clothing that they're wearing is in line with our financial policy, as in you should be giving Senate discretion to that. And when I was a senator, the mentality was, we were, I felt like sometimes we were giving out, not giving out too much, but we were working with groups too much and we're making too many exceptions. And now I'm seeing a complete shift where it's the complete opposite, where it's almost like a sense of stinginess. And every year, every single Towson undergraduate student pays $84. That gets us $1.7 million. That's a lot of money. And that's not any one person's money. It's our job as an SGA to fairly allocate that to everyone. And that to me was the biggest thing with ADC. And it wasn't just that group. And I'm not saying it's a rampant issue, but I think that is definitely something that like really motivated us to run and form this movement.
And I think for me also, just the attitude of student groups need to prove that they deserve this money, or student groups need to be begging for money, or we're somehow giving money to student groups is completely absurd to me, because like Kurt said, students pay the $84. So essentially every student group is entitled to the money that they request in their budget, seeing that it aligns with our funding policy. And I think that the issue is when people come into a position where they feel as if they're giving someone something or doing someone a favor, that's where we've messed up. That's where things are not aligning with our mission, because we need to be helping student groups succeed, not having them begging and pleading for money to put on these events that make Towson what it is.
Okay, yeah. I don't know if we could just get back to the going down the line and why you want to run.
Okay, so I came in as a freshman really excited to participate in leadership, and I interviewed for a freshman senator position and I didn't get it, but I still stayed involved in SGA, and that quickly taught me that unless you had one of these elected positions, then your opinion didn't really matter. You were there to help, and that was nice, but nobody really noticed you. And so this year being in SGA, I saw kind of the similar things. And I think the biggest thing for me when serving as vice president, I would want to not only empower every person in the Senate, but every person on this campus. I don't think that the powers of the SGA should be consolidated into the 50, 60 students who are in elected positions in SGA. I think that we should be empowering every single student on this campus to realize that they can make a positive change. They can be the difference they want to see, not just in this university, but they have opportunities to go and testify at the state level. So that would be the biggest thing for me, just empowering more students.
And for me, like we just touched on, a lot of like why I wanted to run was because I'm on the other side of like, well, what is the other side? And it honestly shouldn't be like sides. It should be like, one unit working together. But I've seen like what it's like to be like in a student group and feel like your SGA is not supportive of you, and feel like your goals and your visions and your needs as a student group are not being met by the people who are selected to represent you. And it's really sad that like not so many people even know like what's going on like in SGA, but those decisions affect their everyday life here on campus. So like Taylor said, like it's really important to empower all of those students and to let them know that we as the SGA are here for you. So your opinion matters, and it's important for you to know that you have an SGA here here to work on those different things that you find important, because like I said, again, it is a unit. And just to hold the SGA accountable of those different things, like to make sure that when they are making decisions, they are based on the university as a whole, and that they are, again, supportive in everything.
I think for me, in my experience in the past 2 years, I've realized that being a part of the SGA, you have so many connections, and whether it's with your peers in SGA or with the administration, everyone wants to see you succeed. So they make it really easy for you to succeed. They work with you, they try to help you, they tell you to come to them if you need anything. And it's just really unfortunate to me that students that are not a member of the SGA or that aren't involved with this organization don't receive that same support. And that's something that really drove me to want to run for executive board, because I think that we should be helping them and we should be aiding them, and we should be their support. Just similarly to what we have, we should be that to them, and be providing them those same connections that we have and that same support. So whether that's with the budgeting process or with Tiger Stripes reform, we should be, that should be our role. We should be providing them what we already receive. So.
And I want to run, just going back to Kurt's point on changing the culture of SGA. As a senator last year, I witnessed what SGA was like. I witnessed the isolation and the exclusivity of SGA, and I wasn't a fan, so I didn't come back. And I felt like this was the perfect opportunity to kind of affect that change. As a senator, I felt like my voice wasn't really heard as much as it should have been. So coming into this position, on exec board, I feel like it gives us all the opportunity to allow senators to have that voice so that they're seen, as well as give all of the students on this university a voice so that their opinion is heard and their organizations are supported.
So this is kind of a deep philosophical question. Maybe just one or two if you want to answer on that. We'll take it just to get a general picture. What do you believe the purpose of student government at Towson University is?
So I guess I'll start. To me, the point blank is to make a difference in every Towson student's life, and that's not, that's not some Towson students, that's not, myself, that's every single Towson student, whether it's, ensuring that we're fairly allocating money to every group on campus, whether it's, doing initiatives like the bereavement procedure so that, students who have a death in the family can have adequate time to grieve without having to worry about academic repercussions, or, anything like that. It's not a resume building opportunity for me. That's why we have other organizations with professional development opportunities. The SJ solely is to make a difference in Towson students. And so yeah, anyone else want to add?
I can go. For me, I think it's just improving the Towson student experience, and recognizing what we can improve upon and what is missing from the Towson students' experience. So like this year, I created a director of health and wellness for the SGA because I saw that that was something that was missing for the student body, that support, that resource to help, advocate for health resources and, be that liaison between the student government and the student body and with those health resources on campus. So that's exactly what it is to me, is seeing what needs to be done and making those changes happen.
So I guess I'm kind of asking you because you're the president, obviously. How did this ticket come together? Like, how did the five of you get together and decide, what, this is the
So we're all laughing because we literally decided to run, I don't know if it's 2 weeks ago, but it's literally 2 weeks ago. The Easter Sunday was probably the last call, I think, that we all decided to run. So for me, I was applying to be a third year as an RA. I was ready for my senior year. I was going to continue with the marketing department that I started last year in the SGA, and kind of just everything was going to, my senior year was going to be set. I knew exactly what I was going to be doing. And, what I started to realize, especially as we got up to election time and I was witnessing what was going on, was that this is not I don't want to say not an organization I'm going to be a part of, but I didn't like the direction that things were going. And, if people didn't stand up, then the conversation was never going to shift and nothing was going to change. And by us running, it's not about whether we're winning or losing, it's about shifting the conversation. And that's what I think that we've done here is, it's not about us four, it's about the entire campus community coming together to take a stand for what's possible for the SGA. And, we're not running a campaign that's against the current administration or against the SGA. We're campaigning on a bold vision to bring the roar back to you. And I think that that's something, I honestly feel like we're making Towson history. I feel like our campaign is going really well. A lot of students are being really receptive. We have a lot of momentum. I feel really good about it, but I could go on and on about this, so I'll just stop right there.
Specifically, how did the five of you choose to come together?
Okay, so all of us share the same sort of, I don't even want to call it a frustration, but the same
vision.
sort of
We have a
vision for the, for what's possible for SGA. And, Jamal was a senator last year with Rebecca and I, and so we had a great relationship with him. We saw, his passion for the SGA. I've known Vanessa since freshman year. TSJ Taylor has been friends. I always say TSJ, but that's okay. Okay, we just need to cut that. So that's really awkward. But Vanessa and Taylor have been really close. And then, like I said, I've known Taylor since freshman year. And then, not Taylor, Vanessa. And Taylor's been in the SGA this year. And I'm rambling, so there we go.
So for those of you who are currently involved in the SGA, what can you brag about? What did you accomplish in the last year? What have you done specifically that you can brag about?
So, okay, I'll start. So, a couple of things I was really passionate about. Kurt took me to a screening of The T Word, which featured one of our students on campus, and it was about transgender students. And so then from there, we went onto, well, what are issues that transgender students are facing on this campus. So I worked really, really closely with one student in particular, and we proposed a number of things to the student government just to increase transgender students' rights, to make them feel more at home here. And, that passed, and it passed here, and then the University Senate passed it. And it just includes a lot of things. It's going to increase resources for transgender students, allow them to use their preferred names in a lot of cases. And so that was really big to me, because I think that was one of our biggest turnouts at any meeting. We had so many students come because they were so passionate about that. And to see the Senate come together to pass something that I felt strongly about was a huge deal. I also proposed the position of a Solicitor General. So that position is set just to advocate for students. And while that's something that we're all supposed to be doing, they're going to be there to help you understand the code of conduct. If you get in trouble with code of conduct, the Solicitor General, ideally one day, will be able to sit down with you and break it down, because it is very complicated. Our Solicitor General this year, he's been doing a great job. He created restorative justice practices for student groups. So instead of just getting in trouble, how are we going to reintroduce you into campus life, make sure you're going to be productive? And so to me, creating that position and then actually seeing it come to life was a huge deal. And then finally, the third thing I'll talk about is adding a non-discrimination statement to our bylaws. So it came time for us to review our Constitution and our bylaws. And I'm like, well, we're looking at this small jargon of how things are worded, and we're missing a huge thing. There's nothing that says that we can't discriminate against students, and I think that is absolutely huge. For me personally, as an African-American woman, that's huge, and for every student on this campus, like we've been saying, to have a fair chance at anything, that's just essential. We require student groups to do it, and so I didn't understand why we ourselves didn't do it, so, yeah.
So this year, I mentioned before, but I created a director of health and wellness to add to the executive cabinet. And that position is basically just to advocate for the improvement of health resources on campus, as well as create awareness of those resources, and to work with those resources into how we can introduce those to students and improve their experience, just understanding them. Along with that position, I created a TU Safety Day, because I chaired the Safety and Security Committee, but that was a vision that I had beginning at SGA Summer Retreat, and I worked on that with my committee all year into really bringing that to life. It was a collaboration between SGA and TUPD, and it basically was an event where we brought all off-campus safety resources together, as well as some on-campus student organizations, and it was really great. And basically, it was just to showcase all of those resources that we do have in the Towson community, and to show appreciation for them. And that was basically it. But and then we also made some informative sexual assault flyers, which are hung around in the union bathrooms. So.
Sorry, when you say we, who was that?
Oh, I'm saying that would be the Safety and Security Committee and myself.
Okay.
And then also with the help of mostly Sandra Schenning, who is the Assistant Director of Civic Engagement, and she's also part of the movement as well.
Right, but that came through the subcommittee you were talking about?
Yes.
The one that she chaired.
Thank you.
So then this year, I worked on creating we created the SJ marketing department. So last year, the Towson TV station, which we used to fund, was bought out by a private company, and we had, I don't want to say an extra amount of money, but we had, a gap in our budget, and we reallocated that to creating a new marketing department. And this year I worked on building that team up. Right now we have 3 graphic designers, a videographer, and a photographer. And so I worked on creating a proposal at the beginning of the year, and then that team has come together. And then this fall we're going to open it up to every single student organization on campus. So our main goal with that goes back to part of why we're running is supporting student organizations. Part of when I look at larger institutions, there's a certain type of brand around our large scale events that a lot of people from off campus come to. And when I was looking at how some of our events were being marketed, I thought that I'm not gonna say reflected poorly on the university, but I thought that there was a big gap in the quality of the event and then how it was being marketed. So what we've done is we've created a team that will support student organizations for free in designing any sort of materials that they need, or helping them like record the event, so essentially like a historian. And art services is pretty expensive, so it's for those like gaps where you wouldn't necessarily hire art services, but you wouldn't have a graphic designer that's a part of your team. And then also this year, I worked on the Safer Mobility app marketing. So pretty much that's a blue light app that'll be launching this fall. It's with partnership with the Towson University Police Department, and it's an app that'll live stream audio and video to the police department. And basically that's so if anything happens on campus, you can like live stream audio. It's actually really cool. And I was just like, I always think of like when there was like a car in the middle of campus and like TSJ like called me and like it was like this whole big thing. But it would have been perfect that if there was an app to like record the car like driving by. So, but yeah, so I think that's it. I probably forgot something, but
what about Dear Doc? Wasn't that new?
Yeah, so Dear Doc, I created Dear Doc. That wasn't this year. I started that my last term as last year, and then this year, halfway through the year, we cut the funding on that, and we shifted that to some of our SGA marketing team. We that was a large expense that I didn't feel like justified the turnout that we were getting, and we get a lot of feedback from social media and people reaching out to us individually. And this is also part of the reason why we're running is I feel like our senators should be doing more constituent outreach and more, a bigger presence on campus. And the software that we're using for Dear Doc was fairly expensive. So that's something I did last year, but yeah. So, yeah.
And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but is maintaining the SGA website your responsibility?
Yes, so I also maintain the SGA website, and all of our technology resources, or I don't want to say like all of our technology resources, but most of anything that you see. So I do all of our social media, also all of our we use SharePoint internally, and then our weekly email system, our director of student groups uses that, but I shifted that. That was more of last year, though, too. So.
But you are still right now in charge of the website?
Yes, so I do still maintain the website.
So I just pulled it up, and the first thing that shows up is Dear Doc.
Yes.
So is that just because it hasn't been updated? Or?
So pretty much when we looked at it was, the website still works and it's still up. It's not something that we necessarily still fund. And, so I guess a lot of...
The SGA website, not just the Dear Doc website.
Yeah, so on the SGA website, Dear Doc is still up there. We still, a lot of the things that are listed on Dear Doc are still concerns that, necessarily... I'm not going to say, are still relevant to Towson students because a lot of that stuff is still up there. But there's a lot of feedback on progress that we've made, so we still kind of use that. So that's the reason why it's still on the website. But we're shifting away from Dear Doc, but it's still up. So that's what we're looking at with that.
So just when's the last time you went in and made a large update to the SGA website?
So you can actually see the Meet the SGA page hasn't been updated. We're launching a new website. We've had a lot of problems with kind of our new, I don't want to say our new server, but we've had a lot of turnover with our accounting in the beginning of the year, and we have some server issues, so we've restored. Basically what happened in the beginning of the semester was we restored from a backup, and the website that's up right now, we're transitioning to a new one, and kind of what it turned into was, is it worth, with all these personnel changes, necessarily shifting over to a new system, or just waiting until next year? So the Meet the SGA page probably needs to be updated more, but part of that is the transition between the technology that we're using to host the website.
Okay, great, thank you. So, again, this is probably these are two separate questions I'm going to ask at the same time. If just one of you could answer, what the big picture platform is that your ticket is running on, and then we'll go through what individual initiatives do you want to see happen next year should you win.
So, okay. I think our biggest thing that can kind of be overarching is we want everyone, whether you've had a good, bad, or no experience at all, we want to relate the SGA more to you. So we want students to have a reason to come to the SGA. There's so many people that I found out while I'm campaigning, well, running for SGA, what's that? And that doesn't make sense to me because they're literally giving us money to spend. So we need to figure out a way to bridge the gap between the SGA and the rest of the campus. And so I think that we have a lot of bold ideas. We have a lot of new ideas that people have never even explored before. And I think that that is what's going to be the key to bridging the gap. And we're focusing on accessibility, transparency, and diversity. And I think that all those things encompassed together are what is going to get us to each and every Towson student. So we want everyone to have a reason to say, I know what SGA is.
Can you explain what accessibility, transparency, and diversity mean?
Sure. So we're going to go through the initiatives also. But as far as accessibility, there's some things that we just feel like are way too complicated for students and student groups. We want to cut out the fluffs, take out the hoops, and just have you be able to get what you need to get done. And so people will give you examples of those. But transparency, we just think that, like I said, right now, I've never just dropped $84 on the ground or given someone $84 without knowing what they're doing with it. And I just think that's absurd. So we're going to increase some transparency. We're going to publish more of what we're doing as far as spending. We're going to have some more oversight and internal spending. We're going to look at how senators' activity is tracked. And then finally, diversity. There's a lot of things we want to do to make the SGA internally more diverse and to focus on promoting diversity on campus. So I think a huge issue is that when you're in the SGA, we are all student leaders, so we do kind of have a certain mindset. We need to make sure that we're reaching out to other students so that we can see what their perspective is. Because as a senator, when you're voting, you're not voting for for instance, what does Taylor think is best? I'm supposed to be, what are the students going to want? What is everyone else's perspective? And there's no way to have that if we're not reaching out to our fellow students, reaching out of our circles of the different groups that we're in, and getting that information.
And then really quick, when you said $84, was that a specific number for any certain reason, or is that just the first that came to mind?
No, so you pay an SGA specific,
okay,
yeah.
$42 each semester.
Yeah,
So.
okay. And then if you could go through and do the initiatives that you personally would advocate for in the next year.
So one of the things that we're campaigning on is we're kind of shifting the way SGA campaigns have been done in the past. So we've got 22 people that kind of like are aligned with our vision of the SGA, and we're campaigning on a large platform, which is what Taylor talked about. And kind of what we've noticed is, the exec board campaigns on this platform, and then everyone else in the SGA works on it. And then, I'm not saying exec board doesn't work on it, but they take credit for a lot of other people working. So we're not, when we're talking here, it's not something that something that we're passionate about, but not necessarily something that we're the only people that are going to be working on it. So I just wanted to preface that. So that's part of everyone that's a part of the ROAR movement, which is what we're calling our large group, and that stems from outside of these 4 individuals. So I'll start off with one of the biggest things that I'm really passionate about is a president's council. And pretty much what we've noticed is the SGA president is very busy, and there's a lot of meetings that they have to go to. And, unless you're like friends with them, the SGA president can sometimes become out of touch with, I don't want to say the average Towson student, but because you're so busy and, there's so many meetings, you don't actually get the full experience, and you're in your own little office. And what we want to do is create essentially a committee where presidents of all the organizations on campus will come together and meet with me and the rest of some of our cabinet members and other members of the SGA and provide feedback with some of the biggest issues that are affecting Towson students. And it's not just necessarily student issues, but also things that they're facing with their group. I think that since the Tiger Stripes program has been launched, and we'll touch on this a little bit, 2 years ago, no one's reviewed it, and I don't think that people realize how much of a burden that is on groups. And I think that a committee like this would essentially hold the SGA accountable for a lot of things that, necessarily, I'm not saying, it's, it's, if you're in your own little bubble, you don't necessarily see what else is going on. And I think that a committee like this with, a president of every single organization or some sort of representative from all the organizations would really help with that. So yeah, I guess we'll just go with that.
Okay, and so 2, other huge things that we're going to focus on is, like Kurt said, taking a look at that Tiger Stripes program again. So just for me being introduced to it, even I was a little like, wow, this is crazy. So not only do we want to break it down for student groups a little bit more, but what we felt like ended up happening is that the responsibility kind of shifted from the senators to the student groups. So it's almost like, since we've laid out everything that you need to do, your senator is not going to remind you, your senator is not going to talk to you, like, it's there, you should know what to do. We don't think that that's right. We think that senators should be working more closely with their student groups. That's one of the primary functions of their jobs, and that's something that I've really enjoyed being able to do with the student groups that I've worked with. Another huge thing, we wanted to take into account groups more specifically. So right now it's set up in a very broad, large scale, and there's just some groups that don't fit into Tiger Stripes. So for instance, BSU and ADC, they both have subgroups. So they have, within their larger group, they have dance teams and singing teams and poetry teams and stepping teams and models. And we just think that we need to look at those groups maybe a little bit differently than we look at a group with one sole focus. So each group is unique in its own way, and we think that the Tiger Stripes needs to be a little bit more specific in the way that we appropriate funds. Because like Kurt was saying, every student group deserves their fair share at access to the funds. Another huge thing is, as a senator, I personally felt really responsible for the way that I was voting, because I knew that I wasn't just representing myself, I was representing several of my classmates. And so I want to work on something that will track senators' track senators' activities. So it would focus on things such as the way that you vote. So you would be able to see if a bill came up on transgender students, how did I personally vote on that bill? And I think that that's huge because as senators, you have to be held accountable for the things that you're doing. You have to be paying attention to meeting. You have to be voting consciously on these things and reaching out to other students to find out, you know, what their opinions are, as well as other things like, is your senator doing their office hours, things like that. We just really want to hold people accountable because we're put in these positions to serve, and that's what we should be doing. We should be serving our classmates, you know, not taking advantage of the privilege that we have to serve each other. So.
A couple things that we would like to see as well is, one of the things is diversity training, and that would be for everybody who is involved in the SGA directly. It's really important that we, as an SGA, are not only, you know, acquainted with these different, like, you know, ethnicities and races that we are representing here at Towson, but that we're open to the culture that comes behind that, because Towson is not, you know, it is a small scale of like what America is supposed to be, a melting pot. So it's like, if we're gonna be representing all of these different people, we have to be trained on those different cultures, and simply being open to learning about that is really important, and that's going to impact the way that they vote, as Taylor said, like that the senators would vote, and just the way that everything is like thought about as a whole. Another thing that we'd like to see is an oversight committee that would basically hold the SGA's spending accountable, especially large spending, to make sure that that spending is benefiting students in general, and because it is everyone's money that makes up that $1.7 million, it's important that we know what is being done with that money, and just that overall it increases the transparency of like what is going on internally in the SGA.
What spending do you mean? Because the overall budget is approved by the Senate.
Just in general, like, so for example, like, I don't really know, like, what can you repeat your question in general?
So you said you want an oversight committee on how the budget is functioning.
Mm-hmm.
As it stands, the SGA budget as a whole is already approved by the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not just written and done. Where do you want to see more oversight on that?
So there's like some internal spending that goes on, and those line items are a big, huge bulk. So there's like a bulk of money for executive board initiatives, and we think that, for instance, like Safety Day came out of a bulk of money that's set aside for initiatives. So we want students to be able to see how that money is being spent, because it's a huge line item. So we think that anything over a certain amount should be observed, whether it's on an initiative like Safety Day or it's on a SGA like internal initiative. So I think that's what Vanessa's talking about when we're talking about financial oversight.
Okay.
And then for me, my first initiative would be having Greek life eligible to apply for the collaboration fund, which is a fund that the SGA currently has that organizations that are differing organizations can apply to this fund, so that they can use that as financial aid to put on an event or one of their initiatives. And I think that that would be really beneficial to have Greek life able to apply to this fund, because by having them have that access to those reserves, they would be able to put on some bigger events. That would also increase campus unity by them working with other organizations. An example of this would be like Alpha Zeta Delta. Their philanthropy is Autism Speaks. So why can't they apply for those funds and put on an event with Autism Speaks on our campus? So that's a good example of that. And then also one of our initiatives is online banking. So we are looking to implement a tool in which student organizations can access their account balance online, because as of right now we require our student organizations to go in person to the SGA office to request their account information, which is very outdated and is just an inconvenience to our student groups. So we're looking to update that and find a better way to make that managing and planning their funds more efficient. So
you mentioned you want the Greek organizations to be eligible for the collaboration fund. What about the $42,500 that the Greek Council's already allocated in the SGA budget? How does that play into?
Well, I would say that wouldn't be exactly the same, because Okay, so simply putting, I would say that that would be similarly to how other organizations can apply for supplementals, or they can apply to the Prove It Fund. All organizations, all student orgs can apply to those other funds and have access to those other funds, even though aside from their budget. So I think that it's slightly unfortunate that Greek organizations or honor societies don't have that opportunity as well to make up for those other initiatives that they hadn't originally had in the beginning of the year and they hadn't originally planned for. So I think it's almost a second chance at providing those experiences to the Towson community.
And that council fund only goes to the councils, it doesn't trickle down to the individual chapters, so that fund is supposed to only be for every council's large-scale events that involve all of those chapters. So what we're trying to do here is unify the campus community. We feel like sometimes Greek life is like over here and everyone else is like over here and whatever. So I think that like if we've got two groups that are trying to essentially like further the same cause, why can't they collaborate? Why can't they do something? So essentially like AZD and Autism Speaks is a great example. And there's a lot of other, like every Greek chapter like has some sort of philanthropy. Like why can't they partner with another student group?
So you want individual Greek chapters to be eligible for collaboration funds?
Yes.
That's good.
And a few other initiatives that we look to implement are a meal bank, bridging the gap between URG and SGA, and making college more affordable. So with the meal bank, what we plan to do is create a program where students can donate meals to a specific bank where students who are going through financial difficulties in a semester or just any financial hardship, they can apply for this meal. They can apply to this meal bank and they can receive a meal from one of the students that donated a meal. As far as the SGA and URG gap is concerned, we just want to bridge that gap because right now it seems as though URG and SGA, it's kind of like a rivalry and we don't work together very often. And I feel like, or we feel like as a whole, that together, if we come together for the entire Towson community, it would be beneficial because the collaborations and partnerships that could come from that are unimaginable. And as far as making college more affordable, we just look to send more students at Towson University and senators from SGA to Annapolis to fight for college affordance. So right now we go for Tiger Pride Day. That's the only time we really go down there to fight for students and making college affordable. What we plan to do is I plan to oversee the legislative affairs director to ensure that he's sending students down to Annapolis on multiple occasions throughout the year so that we can continue to fight that so that they hear Towson University and know that we care about our students and them going to college.
Could you explain maybe more specifically how that meal bank would work?
So with the meal bank, there's not a specific plan set in place yet for how it will be developed, but right now just a rough idea of it would be we would develop this hypothetical bank of meals where students could donate. They could donate these meals, any extra meals that they may have in the week because meals don't roll over at Towson University. So any leftover meals they may have, they can donate them. And any student that's going through a financial hardship or just any financial situation, whether it be through FAFSA or whatever, they can apply for this meal, and if their application is approved, they will be able to receive one of these meals.
But you haven't given a specific thought to who would be eligible, how would you apply, who would approve, and
Well, one thing we worked on this year, and like I said in the fall, I was the chair of the Constituency Outreach Committee, so I worked with a couple of senators who are on our movement, Kristen Zedone and Mary Crow, as well as Davis Kellogg, and we were looking for a way, we feel like a lot of meals at the end of the week go to waste. And so we were trying to find an alternative to wasting those meals, but also, not costing the university any money by turning those meals into dollars, because at the end of the day, the university will lose money from doing that. So hypothetically, and they have the system at other schools, so we would research it more, whether or not we're put into office, because it's a great idea that we want to see happen. But we research it more, but like he said, there would be qualifications and guidelines set up, but it's just set up so that students can benefit, and it's also a way to teach students about helping each other out, which is another thing we want to encourage on campus. Not just SGA has your back, but we all have each other's back, and we think that that'd be a great thing. A great way to do that is through the meal bank.
and then this is just something that only one of you has to answer, so you can just answer. where do you guys as a ticket or as a movement stand on Greek housing on campus?
We're all big proponents of Greek life. I think that Greek housing really validates the Greek system, and I think that, we all are all for Greek life. Greek housing, and Greek housing is in the master plan for the university, so it's something that is going to happen. So we didn't feel that that was necessary to necessarily like put in our platform, because to us that wasn't like a big bold idea. That's something that's already going to happen, and it's going to happen when it's going to happen. There's a lot of things that need to be worked out, and that's what we've realized in the SGA this year, was the Baltimore County Housing Code, and there's a lot of other sort of, I don't want to say roadblocks, but things that would slow that down. So yeah.
All right, great. And then if elected into office, how would your executive board kind of work to mend that tension that exists between Towson University and Towson the community?
So I think that this will a lot fall under Jamal's position, and this year we've got a really great team in community outreach, and that's something that we really want to push for again next year. And the biggest thing that I would like to see is more of a one Towson sort of atmosphere. When I say one Towson, I don't just mean one Towson University, but the Towson community as a whole. Focusing more, I'd really like to see Tiger Fest, instead of it just being about like a Towson student sort of festival, to expand Tiger Fest to be, a community festival as well. So maybe adding a day 3 or expanding the first day into something where the community's invited and it's a full Towson area sort of event hosted at Towson University. I think that would be an awesome experience, and I think that a lot of around us surrounding neighbors, their view of Tiger Fest is extremely negative in, essentially the concert portion of that. So I think that like adding a like fun festival aspect to that with like a Ferris wheel, I love big things, but a big, nice big Ferris wheel, but like a really cool thing like that would be really awesome. So yeah.
Cool. So for those of you serving in SGA currently, how have you fulfilled your constitutional duties this past year?
So for me, my position's pretty straightforward. I oversee all of our internal, external communications. My position has shifted in the last 2 years that I've had it, just because this year I oversaw more of our marketing end of things. So a lot of some of the press secretary stuff I do shifted to Brandon Wharton, who's our deputy chief of staff. So we've just revised our constitution to revise some of the stuff that I'm doing now. So yeah, that's pretty straightforward.
And so I think for me, it's just definitely about going above and beyond. But for constitutional duties, 5 office hours a week. But then to me, that's like, well, how are you spending those 5 office hours a week? Are you in the office doing your homework or chatting with your friends? Which, of course, SGA, it is a student group. We do spend time talking to each other. But I think that those office hours really need to be focused on doing work for your student groups, reading up on legislation, whether it's SGA legislation or Maryland state legislation, finding out the issues that concern students. So I would say just maximizing my time that I spend in the office. And then, attending the budget hearings. And while you're at budget hearings, being there for the students, fighting for student groups, not just browsing over the budget, looking at the funding policy. If that's what needs to be done, there's computers that can do that. We can type things in and they'll sort out what works or not. Are you talking to the student groups, asking questions, trying to figure out, like Vanessa said, how to make things work, not just, going line by line. And then finally, just that other work with my student groups. I've been really, really fortunate to have great student groups, who invite me to their meetings, invite me to their events. And I love, seeing those type of things happen, because I almost feel, just like so proud, because I'm like, these are people who I get to work with every day, and now they're putting on these huge events for the whole campus to enjoy.
So in addition to what Taylor said, because we had the same position, I would just say looking at how you can improve the student's experience. I think that was a big part of a lot of the things that Taylor and I did this year. Looking for what is missing, how we can help the students, because we are representing them. So I know that I did a lot of outreach this year, trying to find out what we were missing, how they felt about those missing resources, if it was necessary, if it was needed. I did a lot of work with the counseling center and the health center with trying to bring those resources to them and developing the new position. So it was really for me, in addition to all of those things, I think it was for me more of using the time in office to change everyone's experience in the most positive way possible and adding something to their experience. I wanted to leave office by adding something to Towson University, and I feel like I did that. So,
so Rebecca and Tyler, this question's for you. Even if you would have changed your mind from what happened, when that finance bill went through for the ADC funding originally, how did you guys vote?
How did
Like when that finance bill went through, how did you vote on that finance bill?
I vote on that finance?
Like, yeah, in favor or not in favor?
I believe I voted in favor.
Okay, I was just curious.
And I voted yes to the finance bill.
I was just curious. Okay. So could you guys, just briefly walk me through the process? You've touched on this a little bit. Walk me through the process that a student group would have to go through if they want funding, and then compare that to the process that if a senator wants an internal initiative or if an exec member wants an internal initiative. Compare those processes for me.
Okay, so I guess I'll talk about this. So right now, student organization, the first step of the budgeting process is they go to a meeting with the SGA treasurer, and they essentially give an overview of the funding policy. They're then required to turn in essentially like it's called a preliminary budget, and then that's reviewed, and then they go to another meeting with SGA senators and the SGA treasurer, who's then the budgeting process. The budget is reviewed again, and then their final budget is submitted, and then they go in front of the entire SGA Senate budget hearing, and then it's voted on. And right now, as an internal initiative, if a senator wants to have an event, or if I wanted to secure funding for anything that I was doing, they would fill out a form, they would take it to their direct supervisor in the executive board, that would get signed, and then upon approval from the SGA president, they would be able to have that funding. So yeah.
And you think, and just to clarify, you guys think that internal initiatives, that there needs to be some sort of oversight? Where would that oversight come from?
So, kind of what we wanted to really shed a light on, I don't want to say shed a light on, but really focus on is, we have every student organization go through that strict process, and I'm not saying that the SGA should go through that strict process, just because I think that, internally, like, if a student group wanted to go to their account, they could just go into Ms. Vicky's office and go through the same process that we do. So, internally, I think that's different, but I think that, what we really wanted to show was that, that $30,000 line item for internal initiatives or anything that's on the initiatives, like, where is that actually going? So yes, it's saying $30,000. Are we actually spending that? And are we spending $4,000 on coffee in the library? Are we spending, I'm just throwing out random numbers. So like $5,000 on safety day. I know safety day wasn't anywhere near that, but different events like that. And the biggest thing that I wanted to look at is where, like, I think the Towson student body deserves to know where that money's going. And I think that when they see the price tag on the initiative, there's a different conversation about what's happening. And I think right now the mentality is just to spend, and just do whatever and don't worry about the price tag. And I'm not, we have a large budget, and it's, we're fortunate to have the largest budget in the state of Maryland, the largest SGA budget in the state of Maryland. And I think that, so yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Do you have a plan in place, or is it just a conversation at this
So-
point where that oversight would come from?
So we would pull, right now we have a judicial branch, and they're well-versed in our Constitution and financial policy. So we would want to pull from different, the different branches to review that oversight, but we would rely really, really heavily on the judicial branch, because like I said, they are very familiar with those processes.
Okay. As it stands in the SGA passed, the executive board is run together, then senators, maybe bloody up and pick a friend or two run together. Do you guys think, if you're coming in with this movement where it has the exec ticket, 12 senators, I think, right, and then several justices, do you think there's any danger in doing that? Is there any danger in, stacking the desk? It's like, because if you guys are all agreeing on these things, where's the opposition? Where's the, disagreement that would lead to growth?
Well, I can
Okay,
So I think a huge thing for me is currently, as it stands, which a lot of people don't know, what ends up happening in a lot of elections is senators are elected, the exec board comes in, and then several of those senators will be appointed director positions. Then what happens is the executive board and a Senate selection committee will find new senators. I think that, for me personally, what I've been observing is that's the way that the Senate has been stacked in the past. People are being picked. Granted, I was an appointed senator. Some people, I believe, are being picked on good merit versus I think that we kind of also need to relook at the way we do that, because that is the way that the executive board can stack senates. There's so many, like Kurt said, transitions where there's opportunities for people to come in and we can hire a new person. I think that our biggest thing is that we're all about transparency and accountability. We want to increase those checks and balances. I think that by doing this together, it will give people all the more reason to say, look, I'm calling you out. I don't think you're doing the right thing. We have 12 senators running with us. We need a super, in order to vote for anything to pass, we need more of a, we need more of a we need a different quorum than that. So it's not like us 12 could pass anything on our own anyway. If that makes sense?
That does, okay.
Okay.
So even though, the exec cabinet, the Senate branch, and the judicial branch would all, hypothetically, if you guys see the election, would all be, in agreement on several issues, you don't see any risk in that kind of uniformity across all three branches, even though, you don't see that interfering with the system of checks and balances at all?
No, because basically what we're getting back to is what Taylor was saying with pretty much how it's worked in the past is the people that are elected at the Senate. I don't actually know the numbers, and we probably should have done this, but the number of senators that are in the SGA right now that were actually elected is less than, significantly less than quorum. So what happens is over the course of the year, senators resign and the exec board appoints them anyways.
Right.
So what we're all campaigning about is accessibility, transparency, and accountability aligned with that. And I think that we're all about increasing those checks and balances, and a part of that is shifting the Senate selection committee so that the Senate can be more autonomous. And we're trying to do a culture change in the SGA so that doesn't happen.
Okay. And then that was actually really good to talk about the culture change. So a lot of what this movement tends to be is you guys want to change the culture of SGA. Have you taken any steps this year while you've been inside to change from the inside rather than sweeping it at the end like this?
Yeah, so pretty much, Taylor and I, especially in the beginning of this year, I've had a lot of friends that are in student orgs that have experienced what Vanessa has gone through with Tiger Stripes, and especially in my position, I only oversee marketing, and I tried to look at creating a task force at the beginning of the year with student organizations, and had a lot of pushback, and I'll let Taylor I didn't actually realize this until we were talking a few weeks ago that we tried to do the same thing at different occasions, and there's been a lot of opportunities where, I don't want to necessarily say okay, yeah, we're just going to drop that. But I think that the biggest thing is, over the course of the year, we've tried to do things that and have gotten a lot of pushback. And
what specifically have you tried?
So it boils down to, a task force for the Tiger Stripes program. I've worked on implementing an information system that will track and maintain records of everything that's involved in the SJ, and that's something that we're continuing. So hopefully we'll have that coming out next year, and that'll go into the financial oversight. And then also just about, the way people perceive student organizations and the SGA, and it's not viewed, I don't feel like it's viewed as a partnership. I feel like it's viewed as an us sort of them sort of thing. And I think I'll let you talk about it.
Really quick, where did the pushback come from? You said there's pushback in some issues.
I just think that, it was viewed as that wasn't necessarily my job, so it was kind of okay, your communications don't do your marketing.
And I think, for me, I tried to start very small, coming in senator, and I wanted to be respectful in the sense of I should go to my direct supervisor first, maybe I should go to the president. I think a couple huge things I had issues with were even the way that some people in the SGA were being treated. If you didn't maybe have a certain attitude, then you didn't necessarily fit in. And I spoke up several times on several occasions to advocate not only for my fellow senators, but for people outside of the SGA. Even in the language that happens in budget hearing, I've spoken up several times to everyone in the SGA. We're not giving anyone money. No one needs to be begging for money. So I think that I wanted to be very respectful in my role as a senator, but at the same time, I had several conversations with supervisors, several conversations with other people in SGA to try and shift that culture. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to come from the leadership. So I think that, like I said, we're doing great things this year, but I think that students deserve better, and I think that we can do better. And so I think that as an executive board, we're going to lead by an example, and as far as how the culture should be. So there's going to be no talking down to people, and we're just going to create a more welcoming environment for everyone.
Okay. So, and just so you know, these next couple of points, is in no way meant as an attack on the movement. It's in no way meant as a personal attack. It's not. These are issues that have been brought to me. I brought issues that have been brought against the other ticket to them. I'm going to bring the same kind of issues to you guys. This is all meaning with transparency and having these issues addressed. First, there's been a lot of talk of members who are associating themselves with the Aurora ticket, not really being uniform for a lot of things and kind of spreading some rumors about candidates that are aligned with the other ticket. And I've gotten this impression that there's just kind of a lack of organizational structure or a lack of, chain of command almost, and people aren't really sure where the authority really lies, so to speak. And if that's if that's true, if it's not, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But if it is, and even if it isn't, there's still that appearance. how would you combat that appearance or that reality as president of the SJ next year?
I think a lot of this boils down to, like, we decided to run 2 weeks ago, and we're just now, like, finally getting everything together. And I think next year, like, it's my job to set the tone of how things are going to go. And in high school, you know, I was heavily involved in a few organizations, and I'm not going to say their names because I get made fun of for saying it too much. So, but you know, I think that, like, I work for a small leadership consulting firm at home, and my boss does a lot of culture, a total company alignment and culture change, and I've really been exposed to a lot of that, and I have a lot of experience seeing, you know, small companies really shift, you know, this total buy-in sort of thing. And if you talk to anyone that's a part of our movement, we're all really excited about the same issue. So I think a lot of what you're talking about, a lot of what we're saying, is stuff that's happened just because we literally, like, this has been something that happened really quickly. So I think if people were to talk to anyone on the movement now, they would feel like we're all aligned and all in this together sort of thing.